The girl with the scent no one could stand. The school ship Unity's light floated through deep space like a city in the stars. It carried students from over 100 alien worlds, all young, all gifted, all dreaming of becoming something great in the Galactic Union. But that day, something unusual happened on Deck 9. A transport pod opened, and out stepped a small, quiet girl. She looked different. Her skin had a pale, silvery shimmer, and her eyes were a deep purple like twin galaxies. She wore simple clothes, her long dark hair tied back neatly. But it wasn't her looks that made people freeze. It was the smell. Within seconds, students nearby began to frown, wrinkle their noses and move away. A sharp, earthy scent filled the air, like wet leaves, burnt wood, and something else no one could name. It wasn't exactly bad, but it was strange. It clung to the air, to clothes, to memory. "Ugh, what is that smell?" whispered a Zarn boy, covering his nostrils with a scarf. "I think it's coming from her," a Thorian girl replied, her voice low and nervous. The alien girl didn't speak. She kept her head down and walked slowly to her assigned seat. Alone at the very edge of the classroom section, no one followed. No one wanted to sit near her. Her name appeared on the holographic roster. Lyra, origin, unknown, clearance, temporary. Across the room, a human cadet named Jacob watched all this. He was tall, with messy black hair and curious brown eyes. Unlike the others, he didn't move away. Instead, he tilted his head, sniffed the air once more and paused. His face changed, not with disgust, but something softer. He had smelled that before, but from where? As the lessons began, Lyra sat completely still. Her eyes scanned the text, but her hands trembled. She didn't eat, didn't talk, didn't move. The scent stayed, a soft cloud around her, making everyone uneasy, the O's. Their students whispered and avoided her, shifting chairs and muttering under their breath. Even the instructor, a calm Solarian with glass blue skin, adjusted the airflow near her seat, trying not to look too obvious. But Jacob noticed. He always noticed things others didn't. At lunch, Jacob made his move. He grabbed his tray and walked right across the room, past the stares, past the whispers, and sat down beside Lyra. Every eye in the room turned to him. She looked up startled, her eyes wide, confused. "You don't have to sit here," she whispered, her voice like soft wind through leaves. "They'll laugh at you." Jacob shrugged. "Let them." She blinked. "You don't smell it?" "I do," Jacob said, "but it doesn't bother me." She stared at him. "Why not?" He paused, searching his memories. Something in that scent pulled at him. Memories of Earth, of childhood, of forests and wood smoke and cold mornings by a fire. Things he hadn't thought about in years. Things lost after the war took his family off planet. "It smells like something from home," he said finally. "From a place I miss." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly looked away. "They all hate it." "Well, I don't," Jacob said firmly. "And maybe they wouldn't either, if they knew what it really was." Suddenly a voice echoed from across the cafeteria. "Hey, human, don't let it infect you." A group of older students laughed, but Jacob didn't flinch. "I think she's the cleanest soul here," he called back, and the room went silent. From that day, Jacob kept sitting next to Lyra. He walked with her in the halls, even when others avoided them. The scent never left, but Jacob noticed something new. The longer he spent with her, the more his own thoughts became clear. He remembered names, feelings, moments he thought were gone. One night, while walking back to quarters, he asked her, "Where are you? You really from?" Lyra looked up at the stars through the transparent dome above them. Her voice shook, but she answered, "A place your people once called Eden." Jacob stopped in his tracks. His nose remembered what his heart forgot. The message from the Galactic Council blinked on Jacob's wrist device again. "Cease all contact with subject Lyra. Violation may result in disciplinary action." He stared at it, confused. Why would the council care about a quiet girl with a strange scent? Lyra stood beside him, still looking up at the stars. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They always send the warnings." Jacob tapped the message off. "I don't care what they say." He meant it. But what he didn't say out loud, what he couldn't explain, was that something had changed inside him since he met Lyra. That scent she carried, it wasn't just strange, it was familiar. It was pulling out pieces of his memory he didn't know were still inside him. He didn't just remember forests and campfires. He remembered his mother's voice, humming an old Earth song. He remembered running through tall trees, laughing with his little sister, memories he thought had been lost in the war, lost when they escaped Earth. But they weren't lost. They had only been buried, and Lyra's scent was waking them up. At training the next day, instructors moved Lyra to the back row, away from others. But Jacob stood up, took his gear, and sat beside her without saying a word. The others stared. The instructor sighed, but no one stopped him. During simulation, a loud alarm buzzed, signaling a chemical alert. Environmental filter overload on Deck 9, the AI voice said. Cause unknown. A few students shouted, pointing fingers at Lyra. She's doing it, one of them yelled. It's her smell. Lyra backed away, hurt in her eyes, but Jacob stepped forward. She's not doing anything wrong, he said loudly. It's your system that's broken. Security bots rolled into the room, scanning the air. One of them focused on Lyra and spoke in a flat tone. Subject contains active emotional reactive C. Dama's signatures. Unclassified type. Unclassified, Jacob repeated. Then maybe someone should classify it before calling it dangerous. He walked straight to the nearest console and opened a private line to his quarters. He had an idea. Something was buried in Earth's data archives. Something old, something forgotten. Jacob was a history student before he joined the academy. He had seen restricted documents by accident once. Now he hacked into an old Earth backup stored in a deep archive from 100 years ago. He typed one word, Eden. The screen flickered and then something loaded. A mission log dated over a century ago. Earth exploration vessel Argos 9, mission Eden 7. The file was marked classified, but Jacob found a back door. Inside were strange notes, handwritten scans, sketches of plants with bioluminescent leaves. A note read, Scent triggers deep memory in humans, response emotional, even spiritual. Another note, locals carry natural scent markers, council demands silence. Jacob's eyes widened. This wasn't just any planet, this was a place where scent was language, memory, healing, and Lyra was from there. Back in his room, he turned to her. You're not just from Eden 7, he said. You are Eden. Lyra looked down. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. You didn't, Jacob said softly. You reminded them of something they don't want to remember. Later that evening, a group of students cornered Jacob outside the study hall. You think you're a hero now, said one, a sharp-faced Thulrian, defending a freak who smells like death? She doesn't smell like death, Jacob replied. She smells like life, real life. They shoved him, but he didn't fight back. He just stood still, staring them down. Finally, they walked away, muttering insults. Inside, Lyra watched from behind the corner, tears in her eyes. No one had ever stood for her before. The next day, something unexpected happened. An old maintenance worker from Earth approached her table in the dining hall. He sat down slowly, breathed in deeply, and tears welled in his eyes. Lilies, he whispered. My wife's garden on Earth used to smell like this. He placed a small flower on the table, smiled at her, and walked away. Other humans started noticing too. One girl sat near Lyra and gasped. It smells like my grandmother's cookies. Another boy said, it reminds me of the rain. Slowly, very slowly, students started sitting a little closer. The scent didn't change, but they did. But not everyone was happy. A council drone arrived that night, hovering silently above Jacob's room. It dropped a single line of text on his screen, cease or be removed. Jacob looked up at the drone, eyes firm, heart calm. He tapped his device and sent one message to Earth's archive base, requesting full records on Eden 7, urgent. And then he whispered to himself, she's not the danger, she's the cure. The planet they erased. The lights in Jacob's room dimmed as the drone floated away into the night corridor, but his heart pounded, not with fear, but with fire. He couldn't sleep, not after what he had found. The name Eden 7 kept echoing in his mind like a lost melody, a place removed from maps, silenced in records. Why? What were they hiding? Early next morning, Jacob skipped classes. He locked himself inside the old research bay, one few students used. Dust floated in the air, and forgotten tech blinked weakly in the shadows. But here, The system wasn't updated with council firewalls. Here, the truth could still live. He pulled up ancient Earth expedition files and filtered everything by restricted worlds. One name flashed red. Eden 7. Access denied. He grinned. Not today. Using the security bypass he stole from the drone's signal last night, he cracked the piston. E-lock. Data rushed in. Images, reports, sounds, even smells recorded through scent mapping. Jacob's eyes widened. There were photos of tall trees with silver leaves, rivers that glowed under moonlight, and creatures that moved through air like dancing smoke. But more important, there were human explorers in those files, laughing, touching, crying. One journal entry stood out. We came as soldiers, but this planet made us remember we were children once too. Lyra was right. Her scent wasn't just a random thing. It was a biological key, something only Edenborn carried. A trigger of emotional memory, deep and ancient. The council didn't fear her. They feared what she could make people feel, because feeling could lead to questioning, and questioning could break control. Suddenly, the screen blinked. Unauthorized access detected. Jacob jumped back as the terminal shut down, smoke rising from the side. The council had found him, again. He ran back through the corridors, nearly crashing into maintenance bots. When he reached Lyra's room, she was gone. Her nameplate flickered, red and empty. Where is she? He demanded to the wall AI. The voice replied calmly. Subject Lyra has been moved for quarantine observation. Quarantine? Jacob hissed. She's not sick. He stormed toward the medical sector, but guards blocked his way. Big ones. Thulrian-class exosuits. He didn't stand a chance. But as he turned to leave, someone pulled him into a side hall. A wrinkled hand covered his mouth. Quiet, said an old man with silver eyes. You'll get her killed. Jacob stared at him, confused. Who are you? The old man smiled sadly. I was on Eden 7, a long time ago. He showed an old Earth military badge, faded and scratched. I was part of the crew that found it, and the one who hid it. Why? Jacob asked. Why erase something so beautiful? Because the council said. Peace was dangerous, he said, because Eden made people remember what it was like to feel, to forgive, to care. They wanted control, not healing. Jacob's voice trembled. But Lyra, she's not just from there. She is Eden. The old man nodded, tears in his eyes. She's the last living link, he whispered, a daughter of the memory forests, born in the final days before we shut the gates. She's not sick, son, he added. She's carrying what we lost. Hope. Jacob clenched his fists. They're trying to erase her just like they erased the planet. No, said the old man. They can't, not if you open the path again. He handed Jacob a small glowing shard, a memory crystal from Eden. It contains a signal, Eden's last call. Jacob took it, and for a moment the scent of Eden filled the air again, stronger. Even the old man wept, smiling through tears. She needs to go back, the man said, and only you can take her. But how? Jacob asked. The planet is hidden, unlisted. The location is in the shard, the man said, but hurry, before they erase that too. Suddenly he gasped, his body shaking. His eyes went wide as if something unseen touched his mind. He clutched Jacob's shirt and whispered with his last breath, She is the key. Bring her home, and you'll save us all. Then he fell to the ground lifeless. Jacob stood there stunned, a memory crystal in his hand, a dead man at his feet, and a girl with a scent that could bring back everything the galaxy wanted to forget. He looked toward the direction of the medical wing, and he knew what he had to do. They wanted her forgotten. Alarms didn't ring, but the silence felt louder than any siren. Jacob walked through the corridor like a ghost. No one stopped him because no one saw him. The shard pulsed in his palm with a soft blue light. It guided him forward, warm and strange. He followed it toward the medical sector, toward Lyra. He reached the observation chamber, but what he saw made his heart sink. Lyra was strapped to a cold table, wires across her mess, tubes in her neck. Around her stood council medics in black suits, emotionless. Her scent had changed. It was sharper, sadder. It filled the room like a final breath. She's releasing something unstable, one medic said. No, Jacob whispered. She's crying. He moved fast, using the old override code the dying man gave him. Doors hissed open, alarms flickered red. Guards yelled, but Jacob didn't run. He stormed in and pulled the wires off her arms. Lyra blinked through half-shut eyes, barely able to speak. "You came back." "I told you I would," he said softly. "We're going home." But the guards rushed in, weapons ready. Jacob raised the glowing shard and shouted, "Touch her, and I'll release this to every public channel." The head medic froze. "That's a memory shard," he said sharply, "from Eden." "Yes," Jacob growled, "the one you all erased." The medic stepped forward slowly. "You don't understand, boy. What she carries isn't just memory. It's contagious. If people start remembering, they'll stop obeying. If they feel too much, we lose control." "So that's what this is about?" Jacob snapped. "You're afraid of feelings?" The medic's voice went cold. "We're afraid of the truth." Just then, the shard in Jacob's hand glowed brighter. The memory inside leaked out like mist. Visions danced in the air, of forests, songs, families holding hands under glowing skies. The guards backed away in awe, their eyes watering. One of them dropped his weapon, whispering, "I remember this. My mother used to hum this tune." Another said, "That's the tree from my childhood stories." Lyra's scent grew stronger, richer, no longer sharp but warm, like home-cooked meals and rainy mornings. The guards couldn't move, not because they were ordered to, but because their hearts had moved first. Jacob helped her sit up. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "I can try." He guided her out and no one stopped them. Not one guard, not one medic. They all stood in silence, their minds busy remembering what they were told to forget. They reached the launch bay, but it was locked down. Jacob looked around, desperate. Then a voice came from above. "I've opened Bay 7, said a familiar tone. It was the old man's voice, but coming through the system speakers, Jacob looked up, confused. "Didn't he die?" Lyra asked softly. "He did," Jacob whispered. "But maybe Eden remembers him." Bay 7 opened with a hiss. Inside was a small scout ship, old, dusty, but functional. Jacob and Lyra climbed aboard, sealing the hatch. As the ship powered up, the council tried one last move. A command override flashed across the screen. Authorization denied, ship lockdown engaged. But then the shard pulsed again. The console blinked. Override accepted. Welcome home, Lyra of Eden. Engines roared to life. The bay doors opened, and the stars waited beyond. As they left the station, Lyra looked back through the window. So many faces stared from behind the glass. Some angry, some afraid, but many, many had tears in their eyes because they had remembered something real, something true. Lyra turned to Jacob, her voice still weak. "They wanted me forgotten." Jacob held her hand. "But we'll make sure you're remembered." Just then, a soft beep echoed from the dashboard. The shard sent out a signal, an old code blinking in a quiet rhythm. It was the location, the hidden coordinates of a world erased from maps, the place the galaxy wasn't supposed to see again. Eden 7. Jacob set the course. The ship turned slowly toward a part of space where no light seemed to shine, and as they flew forward, the scent in the cabin changed again. It wasn't just memory anymore, it was hope. And this time, it didn't make Jacob cry. It made him smile. The scent that healed the wounds of war. The stars outside the scout ship shimmered like cold diamonds. But inside, it was warm, silent, peaceful. Lyra sat by the front window, her hands wrapped. Pet around a steaming cup of herbal broth, Jacob piloted carefully, following the shard's glowing trail. Neither of them spoke for some time. The silence wasn't heavy. It was filled with understanding. Jacob turned his head toward her. "You okay?" he asked gently. "I don't know," Lyra said softly. "I feel like I've been carrying a weight for so long and now it's falling away." Jacob nodded. "You've been carrying a world on your back." She smiled faintly. "Then I hope I carried it well." The signal led them deeper into uncharted space. It was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that made even ships nervous. Suddenly the ship trembled. A wall of misty light appeared ahead, shimmering like liquid memory. The navigation system blinked in confusion. Unregistered gravitational field detected. The shard pulsed again, brighter than ever, and then the mist parted. Beyond it was a small planet, covered in green, gold, and silver. Forests stretched like oceans, rivers sparkled in blue and violet. No cities, no scars, just pure, untouched beauty. Lyra gasped, a single tear falling down her cheek. Eden, she whispered. Jacob had no words, he only stared, and for the first time in his life, something inside him felt whole. They landed in a quiet valley where trees glowed faintly. The air was thick with scent, stronger than Lyra's, but not overwhelming. It was as if the entire planet remembered. When they stepped out, a strange thing happened. The ground pulsed gently under their feet, not shaking, not dangerous, just alive. Lyra dropped to her knees and touched the soil. A wave of light moved outward from her fingertips. The trees responded, swaying even though there was no wind. A low hum filled the air, not music, memory. Then something more powerful happened. The shard in Jacob's hand broke apart into dust. The pieces floated into the air and disappeared. And from the trees, ghost-like images began to appear. Humans from long ago, walking, planting, laughing, aliens of all shapes dancing with them under silver-leaf trees. Jacob's eyes welled up. He saw a memory of himself as a child, running through a garden on Earth with his sister. He hadn't seen her since the war. The vision ended, but his heart felt lighter. Lyra looked at him. The planet is sharing memories now, she said. Not just mine. Back on the school ship and across nearby sectors, strange things began happening. Old war veterans suddenly broke down in tears. Pilots reported dreams of their childhood. Commanders forgot orders and called their families for the first time in decades. The scent had traveled, carried through signals, through stories, through memory. Lyra had become the source of something far greater than pain. She had become a healer. News spread. Ships began turning toward Eden, not to conquer, but to remember. Some came to mourn, some came to forgive, and many came just to feel something real again, but not everyone was happy. The Galactic Council gathered in secrecy. Their leader, a pal, a being with 7 eyes, slammed his hand on the table. This cannot continue, he hissed. If they remember what we buried, we lose control, a general asked nervously. What are your orders? The leader's voice was ice. Destroy Eden. Meanwhile, on the planet, Lyra stood under the memory tree. Its branches stretched across the sky, glowing with soft orange light. She reached toward it, and it lowered gently to touch her hand. Images danced in the air, of wars stopped by. Welcome home, child of peace. Jacob stepped forward. Do you think the galaxy is ready for this? Lyra looked up. No, she said, but they need it anyway. Just then, alarms blared through the ship's comm system. A fleet was approaching. Warships, council class. Jacob clenched his jaw. They're coming to erase everything. Lyra looked at him calmly. Then we'll remind them who we are. The trees behind her began to glow brighter, and across the galaxy, hearts that had been closed for years, decades, generations began to open. Because one girl, once feared for her scent, now carried the memory of everything the stars had forgotten, and this time they couldn't forget again. A song of pain healed by a single scent. Then the tree whispered through the wind. Eden's signal awakens. The sky above Eden changed color. Stars flickered and went silent, not because the light failed, but because the planet had begun to speak. Across the valley, ancient towers long buried under vines began to rise. Stone and crystal shaped by memory pulsed with glowing lines. The trees bowed, not from wind, but from awakening. Eden was no longer just a planet. It was alive, and it was waking up. Jacob and Lyra stood in the center of the glowing circle. She was barefoot now, her hands open. The scent that once drove others away now danced like music in the air. Soft, rich, full of meaning. The memory tree whispered again. The galaxy has forgotten itself. Shall we remind them? Lyra nodded. Yes. The ground trembled gently, and far above, an ancient beacon fired from the tallest mountain of Eden. A beam of gold and green light shot into the sky and split into 7 directions. Each path aimed at a distant world once visited by Eden's first explorers. Inside each beam was a message. Not of war, not of control, but of feeling. People across the galaxy stopped what they were doing. Machines flickered. Aliens froze mid-conversation. Humans on distant mining moons dropped their tools. And suddenly, they remembered. A soldier on Titan fell to his knees, whispering, "My brother's laugh. I forgot it." A merchant on Zalor 3 wept. "I remembered my mother's cooking." A child never taught music began to hum a melody passed down by bloodline, one that was never sung out loud, only felt. And then, the fear began to change because memories don't hurt like weapons, they hurt like truth. And that pain? It heals. But far away, on the edge of the system, the Council's warfleet emerged. Dark ships, rows of weapons, their purpose clear. Erase Eden. Inside the lead ship, Council Commander Varn stood in silence. He watched the signal, felt a tightness in HFY's chest. He had buried his own memories long ago, burned them during the memory purge, and now they were coming back. He reached for his comm. "Engage weapon systems," he ordered, voice shaking. Back on Eden, Jacob activated the ship's scanners. "They're here," he said, "a full fleet." Lyra didn't panic. She stepped forward and placed her hand on the center stone of the signal ring, and the planet responded. A wave of scent, color, and light rose from the ground and shot into the sky. It wasn't a weapon. It was a reminder of every life lost, every child abandoned, every song forgotten for the sake of obedience. On the warship, alarms blared. "Commander, our systems are reacting. Officers are crying." "Crying?" Varn growled. "Yes," the officer said. "Sir, they're remembering." On screens across the ships, images began to appear, memories stolen, voices lost, fathers, mothers, homes. The fleet paused. Weapons were ready, but hearts were torn open. Back on Eden, Lyra's body shone with gentle light. The memory forest behind her shimmered. The wind now carried language. It spoke in scent and color and soul. Jacob looked at her. "You're doing it," he whispered. "You're winning without a single shot." But Lyra's legs trembled. "It's too much," she said. "Eden's voice is strong, but it's using me to speak." She dropped to one knee, exhausted. Jacob ran to her side, catching her before she fell. "What do we do?" he asked. "How do we stop them without hurting you?" The answer came from the ground itself. The stone beneath them split open, revealing a glowing chamber. Inside floated a crystal sphere. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Lyra smiled weakly. "That's the heart of Eden," she whispered. "Its true voice. It can speak without me now." Jacob lifted the sphere carefully, and Eden listened. The trees leaned in, the sky turned still, and then Eden sang, not with sound, but with memory. A signal burst through every ship, every city, every world. The scent, the images, the feelings, all of it, shared in one final wave. And suddenly, millions across the galaxy, the girl with the scent that reminded them of who they really were, Lyra. And at that moment, as the Council fleet stood frozen in the stars, a voice echoed through the entire system, the voice of Eden itself. "We are memory. We are peace. Come home." She carried home in her scent. The galaxy held its breath. Ships stood still, weapons unused. The stars, for the first time in centuries, felt silent. Not because of fear, but because of memory. Across the skies, the voice of Eden echoed again, soft, steady, kind. "We remember and we forgive, now come home." The war fleet, once ready to destroy, now floated like lost children. Inside the command bridge, Council Commander Varn collapsed into his chair, his eyes filled with tears, not because of weakness, but because he finally remembered his son, the boy he left behind for duty, a boy who used to sing songs in a voice that smelled like springtime, a boy whose memory had been erased by his own hand, and now it was back, all of it. "Stand down," Varn whispered. The officers looked at him in shock. "Sir?" "I said stand down," he repeated, louder this time. "Let her live." One by one, the ships powered down, the red lights turned blue, the galaxy began to breathe again. On Eden, Lyra knelt beside the memory tree, her skin glowing with light. The tree pulsed gently, matching her heartbeat. The planet's voice quieted, not because it was done, but because it had said enough. Now it was time to listen. Jacob stood next to her, stunned. Around them, people began arriving, not soldiers, not politicians, but mothers, poets, war survivors, children. They came from every corner of the stars, and every single one of them said the same thing. "We remembered. Some brought soil from their home planets. Some brought old instruments. Others brought nothing but their tears. They walked through the memory forest and sat beneath the glowing trees, not as conquerors, but as guests, and Eden welcomed them. No weapons were needed, no laws were written, just stories shared in scent and silence. Lyra, now weak from carrying so much, sat quietly by the river. The wind carried her scent still, soft, earthy, healing. Jacob sat beside her, looking out over the valley. "You did it," he said. Lyra shook her head gently. "We did it," he smiled. "Are you going to be okay?" She nodded slowly. "Eden is awake now. I don't have to carry it alone anymore." The trees above them released golden leaves that shimmered like stars. They fell gently into the river and floated away, carrying memories to the far edges of space. Far above, the Galactic Council broadcasted a message for the first time in centuries. They didn't issue threats or commands. They simply said, "The girl was never dangerous. The silence was." And across millions of worlds, something began to heal. Old enemies sat together in fields. People held each other for the first time in generations. Songs that hadn't been sung in lifetimes were heard again. It didn't happen all at once, but it began, and that was enough. On the hill overlooking the valley, Jacob looked at Lyra and said, "You know, when I first smelled you, I thought of forests. Then I thought of pain. Then I thought of home." Lyra closed her eyes. "I used to be ashamed of my scent," she said softly. "But now I understand. I was never alone." And then, as the stars blinked gently above them, the wind shifted once more, carrying her scent across the hills, across the rivers, across the stars, to every ship, every world, every soul that had forgotten. And they remembered. They remembered what it meant to love, to lose, to feel, to forgive. Because one girl, feared and pushed aside for something she could not hide, turned her curse into a gift, and her gift into salva. She carried home in her scent, and gave it back to the galaxy.